Coming up on American Black Journal, we've got our roundtable back to deal with all of the things that are going on in our world. We'll talk about the beginning of the Biden administration, the release of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick from prison, and the rollout for vaccines. You do not want to miss this conversation. American Black Journal starts right now.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation. Ally. UAW Solidarity Forever. Impact at Home. And viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. We are just days into the calendar year of 2021, but already there is so much going on. There are so many headlines that are grabbing our attention. We figured we needed to get our roundtable back together to deal with it all. We are going to talk about the beginning of the Biden administration and the policies that we're seeing them roll out. We will talk about the debate about former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick and the commutation he received from former President Donald Trump. And then we're going to talk about the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines. Let's get right to it. Here's my conversation with roundtable guests, Karen Dumas, Kerry Jackson, Greg Bowens, and Brandon Bryce. We have a new president. I have felt liberated in the last few weeks, so much so that I almost didn't wear a sport coat for the show today because I was like, it's a new day and I feel unburdened in some way. I almost just came to the set in my shirt. I wonder if that is the way lots of people are feeling right now as Joe Biden takes the reins and directs us into the future. Karen, what's your reaction?
I think a lot of people feel that way, but for better or worse, everybody doesn't feel that way. And I think that we have to understand that there's still a lot of unhappy and dissatisfied people, both with the election as with the decisions that are starting to come out of the White House. And I don't think that those things can or are going to truly try to find some common ground. We have to address those issues.
Yeah. Greg, what do you make of the early decisions that we've seen come out of the Biden administration? Certainly different. Is it a better direction?
For sure. I mean, everything from lifting or immediately ending this no tolerance policy for detaining people at the border and separating the families, that ended, to his whole removal or reversing the Trump administration's policy of ending programs within the federal government that address systemic racism, racial profiling, things of that nature. And so he's been moving along quite well, I think, on delivering on his campaign promises and for giving us some hope. I mean, you know, when Trump was doing things like saying, well, we're not going to teach people how to deal with folks from different races in the federal government anymore. You know, that was heartbreaking. It was like, really? You really don't want to do that? I mean, their whole idea of saying that racism is just sort of normal and you just sort of have to accept it. And we would hear that when Trump would say, I'm the least racist person that you know, which would imply that everybody that you know, including yourself, are somehow racist, you know? And they've acted from that standpoint, I think, a lot with his executive orders and the moves that he's made.
Kerry Jackson, you are our resident conservative. What's your reaction to the early days of Biden and the end of Trump?
I'm not sure that we're at the end of Trump yet. The fact that 45 out of the 50 senators have indicated that they plan to not hold him responsible for the insurrection at the Capitol, and that there are still 74 million Americans who feel that Donald Trump is still their God. We're not at the end of Trump. He lost the election. He's not in the White House. That's fine. Joe Biden will probably wind up being a much better figurehead as a president. The inauguration, there was a lot of symbolism there that we're going in a brand new direction, that our country has a lot of diversity. And I'm glad that they put on a terrific production with a lot of symbolism. Karen doesn't like symbolism, but it was an entire day of nothing but symbols. And I doubt that we're going to see a whole bunch of, I doubt that there's going to be a sea change in terms of real policy in the next 4 years. Joe Biden he's been there for a very long time. He's going to continue to try and work with old school Republicans that have been there for a very long time. I don't really think that a lot is going to change, but I'm very glad that Donald Trump no longer occupies the White House.
Brandon, what have you thought of the things that we've seen Joe Biden do in these first few weeks?
Well, let me start here. I think, when we talk about symbolism, I actually have to agree. We need to get past symbolism and start talking about substance when we're talking about living still in the age of COVID-19. That is still alive and well. I'm kind of torn. On the one end, I think we've got through the antics and some of the issues of not being able to govern with the former president. But now it's the Biden show. And the reality is Joe Biden is, let's call it what it is. He's coming in with a Democratic majority. He's coming in with the Senate. He's coming in with the House. So no longer can he say or blame 45. This is the Joe Biden show. I'm kind of torn because there are some things that, just recently getting and ending the contract with private prisons. That's something that when we talk about prison reform, I can get behind as a conservative. My concerns are the $4 billion in aid that he wants to now send to Mexico, where literally our Congressman Huizenga is saying, wait a minute, why are we giving other countries and nations money, one, who don't like us, but two, at a time when the American small business owner is struggling? So those are the decisions that I think this president has to make. Is not only is this the Joe Biden show, but Joe Biden, I think his biggest challenge, ironically, is not going to be Republicans. It's going to be, does he remain a centrist, or does he cater to the progressive side, who is getting and growing and becoming stronger in his party?
Yeah, you think Mexico doesn't like the United States? They're our second largest.
I'm talking about Mexico and also Iran.
Yeah, Mexico and Iran aren't in the same category in terms of how we deal with them. Again, Mexico's our second largest trading partner, and a border country.
The reality is this. But Steve, the reality is this: we've got $4 billion when you talk about the crumbling infrastructure in our own nation. When we talk about the fact that Godiva and companies that we've known for years are literally packing up and closing up. We've got a crisis in this country, not to mention some folks who have taken the vaccine, and we'll talk about this later. We don't know if that vaccine is actually going to help or hurt. So, we've got so many issues in this country that right now we've got past the Trump antics. It's time for the president to govern.
I want to make sure we get to all three subjects today. The next one is a huge one here in the city of Detroit. Kwame Kilpatrick, our former mayor, got his 28-year sentence commuted. So he's only going to have served just a little over 7. I have been really interested in how reactive Detroiters are to this news. He hasn't been mayor here for more than a decade, but lots of people still feel really invested in him and the time that he spent as mayor, and they feel really strongly about him getting this commutation. Karen, you worked with the former mayor. I'm going to start with you.
Well, and I've said this before, I said it in an op-ed piece in the news, even people that did not support, Kwame Kilpatrick, many of them thought 28 years was excessive. So, 7 years, he's out. I think it's time for, people to move on, but it is something that people like to rally behind. You said, you were, shocked at, just the interest and the fever with which people are interested in Detroit. It takes me back from people that have nothing to do with Detroit, people that don't like the city, people have never been here, they don't have a vested interest, and they are hell bent on having this really aggressive position on, what they thought. Stephen, you and I've talked about it before, is that he had conveniently become the poster child for all of Detroit's challenges, which was inaccurate and unfair. You did an exhaustive piece for the Free Press that really outlined all the contributing factors to put Detroit not only where it was, but sadly where it continues to remain today. So I think people, before they take a side for better or worse, should arm themselves with as much accurate and factual information as possible.
Kerry Jackson, what do you think about the idea of the former mayor getting out and maybe coming back to Detroit?
Well, Karen knows good and well that the people are not going to take the time to get as much factual information as possible. That's wishful thinking. The angle that nobody's really talked about is it was a commutation, it's not a pardon. And the thing that has apparently just missed everybody's radar are the conditions that comes with that commutation. What's going to happen? It's a setup. It was a clear setup. And what's going to happen if he fails any of those conditions? It's going to cause, calamity and a lot more trouble down the road. But I'm hoping that he's successful.
So Kerry, talk just a little bit about what those conditions look like. That's an important legal distinction.
He's got to go report.
He's got to follow a lot of rules. Otherwise, he could go back. He could go back to prison.
Go back to prison, and he's got 20 more years hanging over his head, and he's got to pay back $4.7 million that's outlined. Man doesn't have I don't know if he's got 4.7 million somewhere stashed, but that's a ridiculous amount of money to have hanging over a prisoner's head.
Greg Bowen, you and I are about the same age as Kwame Kilpatrick. We grew up in the city about the same time. He came to symbolize so much of the promise that our generation had, especially for African-American boys and men who grew up in the city at that time. What do you think he means to us now?
I think that he means that miracles still happen. I think, here was a brother that was going to be locked up for 28 years, and that's a long time. And yet, through the most unlikeliest of allies in Donald Trump, who I think is no friend to the Black community, became the vehicle for him getting out of jail and being reunited with his family. Now, that's a miracle. I don't care where you stand or how you look at it, whether or not you think it was too much time or not enough time, but it's that commutation was proof positive that miracles can happen, and they happen to him and they can happen to you. So I see that. But also on the other hand, there's this idea that somehow we need to pass judgment on the act itself and Kwame and what he means to us. I don't live in Georgia, but I care that John Ossoff won, becoming a U.S. senator. I care about what happened when that brother who had ran for governor and then got caught up in the drugs and all that stuff. I mean, these national images, these national figures that we have on the national stage mean a lot to us. And I think that we need to be mindful of that in their position on the national stage. What Mr. Kilpatrick does next with his life, should we even have the opportunity to see? He may just, go on and live his life and love and continue on in obscurity. But whatever he does, it will remain a lesson and something worth watching.
Brandon Bryce, quickly, your thoughts.
This was probably one of the testaments to 45's criminal justice reform, in the sense that it took a Republican like Donald Trump to let out Kwame Kilpatrick. But this speaks to a much bigger issue, Steve, not just about prison reform, but the fact that, there are serial killers that don't get 28 years. And the fact that this sentence was so harsh, I think people across the board said, okay, did he need to do some kind of time? Absolutely, for his crimes, but it was a bit too much. And I think this also speaks to the double standard that we're seeing And I mean, some could question that there are situations, even in some of our own government right now, where folks are doing some of the same things and the media slaps them on the wrist. And so I think this speaks to the double standard. When we talk about the media and African-American leadership, are they held to the same standards or not? And so I think that, I'm glad that Kwame's out. I think the next, and I think it's important what was mentioned earlier about the fact that, let's be clear, this was not a pardon, this was a commutation where now, to see what's the next life for Kwame Kilpatrick. Is it going to be back in politics? Is it going to be some kind of advisor? We don't know, but I find it ironic that he's released literally the year before the upcoming mayoral election.
Yeah. Well, he's ineligible to run in that mayoral election.
But he's got influence.
He could certainly run for Congress in the 2022 election.
And he can file to run in Georgia or Texas or anywhere else that he wants to file to run. And his deputy mayor is now running for an office.
I want to quickly get to the vaccines and also talk about these new strains of COVID-19 that not only appear to be more contagious, but there's reports now that they also may be more deadly. In some ways, the vaccine is this light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still in the tunnel. We're far from that light. I worry that we're not acting that way, that we're rushing to get back to life as it was before. Restaurants are about to open next week, and they're sending back kids to school in person. For African Americans, I keep saying this is especially dangerous. We can't afford another spring and summer like we had last year. Carrie, I'm going to start with you.
That was the topic of this morning's show. And I was surprised to find out that as many African Americans really, they are ready. They just want more information on the vaccines. They will take the vaccine if, in fact, they are provided with, they want their questions answered. The truth is, African Americans simply want to make sure that we're receiving the same quality health care that everybody else is receiving. And if we are, they are going to roll their sleeves up and take the shot when it's their turn, just like everyone else. They just need their questions answered. And I think that, the medical community, especially the African Americans in the medical community, are doing a great job of trying to push that information out to the Black community to say, don't believe the hype, don't worry, conspiracy theorists, go get the shot when it's your turn. But you're right. The fact that, now that Biden is in office, everybody is saying, oh, Trump's gone, we can open everything now and everybody go back to living your life. No, we can't. It's still time to be still, wear your mask, hide out in the basement, actually wear 2 masks, still stay at home and stay away from people, because we're not anywhere near. I mean, President Biden said himself, we've passed 400,000. We're heading for 600,000 before we get to the point where we're turning to where we get to the end of the tunnel. And folks need to realize that before they start running back out in the street thinking that, it's time now. We can go back to living a normal life.
Yeah, Greg, go on.
The communication and messaging around the vaccine and how it impacts the Black community, I think is still messed up. Sad to say. You just referred to us getting to the light at the end of the tunnel. And the truth of the matter is that even at 95% effectiveness, that means that 5% will still get sick and potentially die. Excuse me. The other thing is that the messaging is confusing because people are saying if you get the shot, then you don't have to wear the mask. Well, we know that's not true. So as opposed to getting to the end of the tunnel, I think we really need to say that this is another step in being able to keep you safe. We need to really refine that message a little more. The other thing is that the way that you sell stuff and all this stuff, I mean, I was like waiting on Kamala Harris, to the vice president, to get her shot. I was like, okay, she gets her shot, then okay, I'm good. I'll go get my shot. But the truth is that we're seeing people being slick about it and jumping the line and finding ways to get their shot early. Some guy who was an EMS guy in Florida just got arrested for stealing the vaccine and all this stuff. And so the shenanigans are out there. And if the shenanigans are out there, and Black folks, we know that we live in a society where the healthcare system is not the fairest to us,
Right.
then the concern, I bet, is going to get pretty quickly to where we really fall on that list of getting the shot. I know some people, even one on this panel who's not getting the shot is an anti-vaxxer.
Who's not getting
So I'll let you peruse the panel.
I had some doctors on my show the other day who talked about the fact that, we're really looking at the culprits here. The media has completely done a hit job on this issue around information and promoting misinformation. And unfortunately, there is money to be made, whether it's misinforming people around the issues around the vaccine or getting the vaccine, or not informing people. And so I think one of the challenges is that this is really where in 2021, we've got to really depend on not only science, but really the health professionals should be leading this conversation, not elected officials and politicians. Because, and I'll go back to something even Greg said, the politics has swayed people from either getting a shot or not getting a shot. And I think right now we've got thousands of people who, if they are recovering from COVID-19 or just trying to assure that they don't actually contract the virus. The other thing is looking at the economic impacts from COVID-19 and how we're going to deal with that in terms of getting those restaurant owners, getting them back up to snuff. 25% right now, that's not sustainable, Steve.
Sure. Karen, are you the culprit here? Are you not getting the vaccination?
Hey, I'm not the culprit, but let me say this. We are a country that has to be reminded that we have to wash our hands after we use the bathroom. We've got a long way to go in terms of a level of health consciousness. We're a dirty country. People think that their germs are okay. We need a comprehensive strategy. That's not going to happen because you're going to have people on both sides, and we are a country that respects a difference of opinion and free will. I don't encourage anybody to do anything that I do or don't do. I encourage you to do and find out as much for yourself and make a decision in your best interest. For me, no, I'm not. And I got dragged on Twitter because I said I wasn't going to do it. But, I'm friends with people who have gotten it. I'm going to be friends with people who don't. But I think we do.
Tell me what your reason is. Tell me what your reason is.
I don't take the flu vaccine. I haven't gotten the flu vaccine. So
it's not killing half of them.
Are you wishing bad on me, Stephen? I'm just saying no.
No, I'm saying this is different than the flu.
And that's fine. But at this point, I'm not comfortable getting it. We've got 2 vaccines. They require 2 completely different levels of handling and distribution. Nobody's talked about what the ingredients are, but they tell you don't take it if you're allergic to it. The distribution, there are too many questions. The trial, usually in the beginning, they said we need 3 to 7 years to have an effective trial. That was accelerated into 3 or 4 months. It's just not something I'm comfortable with at this point. And so, I'm just going to have to talk to Greg over the phone. We are going to be in the same room.
Oh, Karen, I love you. You need to get that shot, darling.
In 6 months, no one's going to want to see you.
And that's something I'm comfortable with right now. I'm just not. So,
Sounds like she has, as I said, there are a lot of folks that have questions, and every question that Karen said is something that I had someone on the show the other day that they can answer those questions.
I don't, but I've listened, but just like this, I heard Dr. Fauci in 2 different conversations. In one hand, he was encouraging people to get it, but then turned around and said, we don't know the impact of it in terms of prevention, in terms of transmission, or in terms of recurrence. So yeah, it's just, so no, I just not right now. And,
obviously I reach a different conclusion for myself, and I hope that for most people we reached a different conclusion. But I respect the fact that you looked at the facts for yourself and decided something different. But as your friend, I say I want you to get that shot. I want you to come to the conclusion that it's the right thing to do.
Somebody got mad at me. They said you shouldn't say that. People listen to you, and you're encouraging them not to get the shot. I'm not encouraging anybody to not do anything. I am encouraging people to do what's best for them and what they're comfortable with. I'm not telling you not to get it. I'm not telling you to get it. I'm telling you to do what's best for you and your family, wherever you find that comfort.
Before we leave, I want to take a couple moments to remember Hammerin' Hank Aaron, who passed away recently at the age of 86. He was a trailblazer, not just in baseball, but also in America. And he's a man who braved racism and hatred that was directed toward him with an incredible grace and dignity. For 33 years, he was the home run king of American baseball. And he was not only a sports figure, but somebody who really fought for civil rights and racial justice. He was a champion to all of us, and we hope his friends and family are well in this time of grief. Rest well, Hank Aaron. That's going to do it for us this week. You can always find more about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can always follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Nissan Foundation. Ally. UAW Solidarity Forever. Impact at Home. And viewers like you. Thank you.